Have you ever wondered why your adult children seem to visit less frequently than they used to? Or why those phone calls have become shorter and less personal? The devastating truth is that certain phrases you might be saying could be silently destroying your relationship with them. Words have incredible power. They can either strengthen the bonds you've spent decades building or create wounds so deep they may never heal. What if I told you that just by changing a few common sentences, you could transform your relationship with your adult children almost overnight? In this video, I'll reveal the 6 toxic phrases you should never say to your adult children. With phrase 5 being so damaging, it could make them cut you off completely. More importantly, I'll show you exactly what to say instead to rebuild connection, respect, and the loving relationship you deserve. Let me tell you about Nancy, a 73-year-old retired teacher from Ohio. She couldn't understand why her son and daughter visited less and less frequently. Phone calls became shorter, invitations were declined, and there was always an excuse why they couldn't stay long. Nancy was heartbroken, convinced her children no longer cared about her, despite everything she had sacrificed to raise them. What Nancy didn't realize was that certain phrases she repeated almost automatically were pushing her children away. These weren't dramatic confrontations, just everyday comments that slowly eroded their desire to be around her. By the time she discovered the problem, her relationship with her daughter was already severely damaged, requiring months of effort to repair. The saddest part? Nancy never intended to hurt anyone. She simply didn't recognize how her words were being received. Are you making the same mistakes Nancy did? Let's find out as we explore the 6 toxic phrases you should never say to your adult children. Toxic. Phrase 1. After all I've done for you. Have you ever found yourself reminding your children of all your sacrifices when they don't meet your expectations? Perhaps when they can't visit as often as you'd like, or when they make decisions you disagree with. This phrase might seem justified in the moment. After all, you did sacrifice enormously for your children, but the impact is devastating to your relationship. Family relationship experts from the National Institute of Family Dynamics confirm this phrase creates deep, lasting resentment. Their research shows that when parents reference past sacrifices during disagreements, it triggers a complex mixture of guilt, anger, and emotional withdrawal in adult children. What's meant as a reminder of love instead feels like an emotional debt they can never repay. Consider what happened to Arthur, a 78-year-old retired factory worker from Michigan. Whenever his son couldn't visit or help with household tasks, Arthur would say, "After all I've done for you, all the extra shifts I worked to put you through college, this is how you repay me." He thought he was simply expressing disappointment, but his son was experiencing something very different. Over time, Arthur's son began calling less, visiting less, and when he did visit, the interactions felt tense and obligatory. It wasn't until Arthur's neighbor pointed out the pattern that he realized what was happening. His son later admitted that these guilt trips made him dread their interactions. "Every call felt like I was being told what a disappointment I was," he explained. "Eventually, it was easier to just not call as often." Here's what you need to do instead. Replace obligation with appreciation. Instead of saying, "After all I've done for you," try, "I'm so proud of the person you've become," or "I'd love to see you when you can make it." Focus on the present relationship rather than past sacrifices. This simple shift acknowledges your adult child's autonomy while expressing your desire for connection without weaponizing the past. Make this change immediately. The next time you feel tempted to remind your children of your sacrifices, pause and ask yourself, do I want to be right, or do I want a relationship? Because you can't always have both. Toxic. Phrase 2. You never call, visit me. Do you find yourself regularly complaining to your children about how rarely they contact you? It feels natural to express loneliness or disappointment, But this phrase creates exactly the opposite of what you're hoping for. Communications specialists at the Center for Family Dynamics report this phrase creates pressure that backfires dramatically. Their extensive studies of intergenerational relationships show that adult children actually contact their parents less frequently when they feel guilted about it. The reason? Every call or visit becomes associated with stress rather than joy. Take Virginia, 76, from Florida. She constantly told her daughter she felt abandoned and neglected. "You never call me anymore," she would say. "I guess you're too busy for your mother now." Virginia intended these comments to encourage more contact, but they had the opposite effect. Each conversation began with complaints, making her daughter associate calls with stress and guilt rather than loving connection. What Virginia didn't realize was that her daughter was avoiding calls not because she didn't care, but because she couldn't bear the guilt trip that started every conversation. It wasn't until Virginia had a heart-to-heart with a friend who pointed out the pattern that she changed her approach. Once she stopped leading with complaints, her daughter began calling more frequently, and their conversations became genuinely enjoyable again. Here's the solution you need to implement today. Instead of saying, "You never call me," try, "I always enjoy hearing from you," or "It makes my day when we can connect." Focus on the positive feelings from connection rather than the negative feelings of absence. This subtle shift removes pressure and creates a space where your children want to reach out, not because they have to, but because they look forward to it. Start making this change with your very next interaction. Don't wait for things to get worse. Transform how you express your desire for connection now, before resentment has a chance to grow. Toxic phrase 3. In my day, we didn't. And 3. How often do you compare your children's parenting, work ethic, or lifestyle choices to the way things used to be? This comparison might seem like harmless reminiscing or valuable wisdom sharing, but it's silently damaging your relationship with every utterance. Psychologists from Harvard's Generational Research Center warn this phrase signals judgment and outdated thinking, regardless of your intention. Their studies demonstrate it creates immediate defensive reactions and dismissal, even if the information you're sharing is valuable. The moment your adult children hear, "in my day," they stop listening and start defending. Consider what happened to Edward, 82, from Pennsylvania. He constantly criticized how his son and daughter-in-law raised their children, comparing their parenting to the tougher approach from his era. "In my day, we didn't coddle children," he would say. "We taught them respect and discipline." Edward genuinely believed he was offering valuable guidance based on experience. What he didn't realize was that his son was silently pulling away. His son began filtering what he shared about his family life, avoiding certain topics altogether, and eventually stopped bringing the grandchildren around as often. It wasn't until his daughter-in-law gently pointed out the pattern that Edward understood the impact of his words. His comparisons weren't being received as wisdom, they were being experienced as criticism and judgment. Here's what you need to do differently. Instead of beginning sentences with, "in my day," try, "I'm curious about why you chose that approach," or "things certainly have changed since I was raising you." Show genuine curiosity rather than judgment about different ways of doing things. This simple shift transforms your communication from criticism to conversation. The world has changed dramatically since you raised your children. Parenting approaches, work environments, and lifestyle options have all evolved. Rather than comparing today's choices to yesterday's standards, approach these differences with curiosity instead of judgment. Your relationship with your adult children depends on it. Toxic. Phrase 4. You should, shouldn't, and unsolicited advice. Do you frequently offer advice your adult children never asked for, whether it's about their career, their marriage, or how they're raising your grandchildren? Unsolicited advice is one of the fastest ways to create distance in your relationship. Research from the Institute of Family Relations shows uninvited advice is almost always interpreted as criticism and lack of confidence, regardless of your loving intention. Their studies reveal it's the two complaints adult children have about elderly parents, second only to boundary violations. When you offer advice that wasn't requested, what you mean as help is received as judgment. Look at what happened to Shirley, 70, from Texas. She constantly told her daughter how to manage her career, marriage, and children, offering detailed suggestions for everything from diet to discipline to financial decisions. "You should really be stricter with Tommy," she would say, or "you shouldn't let your boss treat you that way." Shirley's intentions were good. She genuinely wanted to help her daughter avoid mistakes. The impact, however, was devastating. Her well-intentioned advice made her daughter feel judged and incompetent, like nothing she did was ever quite right in her mother's eyes. Their conversations became tense, with her daughter sharing less and less about her life. Their relationship improved dramatically only when Shirley learned to wait until asked before offering suggestions. Here's your immediate solution. Unless it's a genuine safety issue, wait to be asked. Say, "I'd be happy to share my thoughts if you're interested," or "What do you think would work best in this situation?" Respect their autonomy as adults who are capable of making their own decisions, even if those decisions differ from what you would choose. This change might feel difficult at first, especially if you've been freely offering advice for decades. But restraining yourself now will lead to more open communication later, as your adult children learn they can share without receiving immediate correction or direction. Try it with your very next conversation. You might be surprised how quickly the relationship improves. Toxic phrase 5. I won't be around much longer anyway. Have you ever used your mortality as a tool to get what you want from your children? This phrase might seem like a harmless reminder of life's realities, but it's actually the most damaging statement on our list, one that can cause adult children to cut off contact completely. Mental health experts call this emotional manipulation, using fear and guilt to control others' behavior. Research from the Center for Healthy Aging shows this phrase often leads to complete relationship breakdown, with adult children eventually avoiding all contact rather than continuing to experience this form of emotional blackmail. Take Doris, 75, from Illinois. She used this phrase whenever her children couldn't accommodate her wishes. "I'd like you to visit this weekend. I won't be around much longer anyway." Or, "I was hoping you'd help me clean the garage. I won't be here forever, you know." Doris didn't see this as manipulation. In her mind, she was simply stating facts. What she didn't realize was the devastating impact these statements had on her relationships. Her son eventually stopped calling altogether, later explaining that these emotional manipulation tactics made every interaction feel like an ambush. "I couldn't have a normal conversation without being reminded that Mom might die soon," he explained. "It was emotionally exhausting." By the time Doris understood what was happening, their relationship had been severely damaged. Here's what you must do instead. Express your needs directly without manipulation. Say, "I would really appreciate if you could help me with this," or "It would mean a lot to me if we could spend some time together soon." Honest communication builds respect, while emotional manipulation destroys trust. Remember, your adult children are already aware of your mortality. They don't need reminders that create guilt and fear. If you've been using this phrase, stop immediately. It's the most toxic pattern on our list and the one most likely to result in permanent damage to your relationship. Toxic phrase 6. Why can't you be more like your brother-sister? Have you ever compared your children to their siblings, cousins, or other people's children? This comparison might seem motivational from your perspective, but it's reactivating old wounds and creating new ones with every utterance. Family therapists unanimously agree comparisons are devastating to relationships. Studies from the American Association of Family Therapy show they reactivate childhood rivalries and create lasting resentment not only between parent and child, but also between siblings. What's worse, this damage doesn't diminish with age. It actually intensifies. Consider Harold, 77, from Washington. He constantly compared his two daughters, praising Diane's successful corporate career while questioning Carol's choices as a teacher. "Why can't you earn a good living like your sister?" he would ask Carol. "Diane bought a new house while you're still renting." Harold genuinely thought he was motivating Carol to greater success. The reality? His comparisons not only damaged his relationship with Carol, but also created tension between the sisters that lasted years. Carol began avoiding family gatherings where Diane would be present, and the sisters' once close relationship became strained. Family holidays became tense affairs rather than joyful reunions. The saddest part, Harold had no idea he was causing this division until his wife finally pointed out the pattern. "Here's your solution. Recognize each child's unique strengths and path. Say, 'I appreciate how you approach things in your own way,' or 'I'm proud of the unique qualities you bring to our family.' Celebrate differences rather than comparing them. Your children are not versions of the same person. They are unique individuals with different strengths, challenges, and paths through life. Make this change immediately. The next time you're tempted to make a comparison, stop yourself and find something to praise about each child individually instead. Your relationship with all your children will improve dramatically when they no longer feel ranked against each other in your eyes. You now know the 6 toxic phrases that could be silently destroying your relationship with your adult children. From guilt-inducing reminders of past sacrifices to manipulative comments about mortality, these seemingly innocent statements create deep wounds that can take years to heal. The good news? By changing how you communicate today, you can begin rebuilding those connections immediately. Remember, it's never too late to shift your communication patterns. Every conversation is an opportunity to strengthen your bond rather than weaken it. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button right now and subscribe to our channel for more content on building stronger family relationships. Comment below which phrase surprised you the most or which one you've caught yourself using. Sharing your experience might help someone else recognize these patterns too. Share this video with friends who might benefit from this advice. You could be helping save a precious family relationship.